Slasher films ruled the 1980s, and we all know the heavy hitters, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, but I'm not here to talk about those guys, because it's time to shine the spotlight on some of the lesser-known 80s slashers that deserve to be on every horror fan's spooky season watch list. Welcome to the Cinema Cult. I'm your guide CT, and these slasher movies may not have kicked off generational franchises, but these are 8 of the best deep-cut slashers the 80s have to offer. Now I've got something for every kind of slasher fan here, so if you love high-speed chases, creepy masks, gory takedowns, or the traditional summer camp setting, I've got you covered. And I'm kicking things off with a summer camp slasher, and this one's part Friday the 13th, part urban legend, and features a disfigured maniac getting stabby with his garden shears. Talking about The Burning. Released in 1981, The Burning was a total flop at first, probably because the censors hacked out some of the best gore. Thankfully, all that gory goodness was restored over the years, so it's no surprise it's also had a bit of a resurgence, because there is some gnarly stuff here. The story kicks off with a group of campers playing a prank on the mean old caretaker Cropsy, but things go way too far, and he ends up burning alive, horribly disfigured, and understandably super pissed. So now 5 years later, he's back at Camp Blackfoot, ready to have his revenge on the next generation of campers. And the whole setup riffs on the Staten Island legend of Cropsy. It's sort of a regional boogeyman story. The Burning stands out as one of the few summer camp slashers that wasn't just a Friday the 13th knockoff. For one, this camp actually has campers, and there are some awesome casting choices amongst those campers. You've got a very young, very chatty Jason Alexander, otherwise known as Costanza from Seinfeld.
Say, can't stand ya!
There's also Brian Backer from Fast Times at Ridgemont High here, playing a creepy, peeping Tom character, Alfred. And that role makes a lot more sense when you see who produced this film, but I'm not gonna get into that. Because the highlight here, well, it's Tom Savini's now legendary Raft Massacre. It's a brutal ambush. Fingers get sheared off, heads are sliced open, one dude gets stabbed right through the throat. It's a real shift in tone, too. This is a movie that lulls you into thinking it's maybe closer to Meatballs than Texas Chainsaw, and then suddenly, 5 people are dead, and Cropsy and his melted face are just getting started. The final showdown between him, Todd, and Alfred, it's classic 80s slasher stuff that ends with a hatchet right to the face. So, if you've been sleeping on The Burning, this spooky season is the perfect time to catch up. One face you might not recognize from The Burning is Carrick Glenn. That's because she only ever appeared in 2 feature films, and we're about to get into her other one right now. It's Girls' Nite Out. Girls' Nite Out might be the oddest slasher on this list, and honestly, some folks might say it doesn't even belong here, but hear me out. Watching this movie feels like you're watching folks who don't totally know how to make a movie somehow totally succeed at making a pretty good movie. And that's not really far from the truth, actually. This one was conceived by a couple of lawyers looking to cash in on the early 80s slasher boom. And what they gave us, it's part college comedy, part campus slasher, and it just needs to be seen. And the plot here revolves around a group of college co-eds spending the night partying and participating in a campus scavenger hunt, while a killer in the school's bear mascot costume stalks and slashes them with a set of DIY steak knife claws. And Freddy Krueger might be iconic, but this maniac had the bladed finger thing going 2 years earlier. Girls' Nite Out didn't have the gore budget of The Burning, but it makes up for it with pure strangeness. The tone shifts constantly. It starts out like a low-rent Animal House. At some point, it kind of transforms into an accidental American giallo. And what makes Girls' Nite Out work, though, is definitely the mysterious killer. There are so many side characters and red herrings thrown at the audience, it's impossible to keep track of them all, and it's kind of part of the fun of watching this movie. And when the killer reveal finally happens, it's absolutely absurd, it's completely worth the ride, and don't worry, I won't spoil it because it's too good. But what I will get into is my favorite death, because it's gotta be Sheila waiting for her boyfriend in an abandoned shed, thinking he's just playing around in that bear costume, until the mascot bursts through the window and plunges those steak knives right into her throat. It's both ridiculous and pretty amazing. Girls' Nite Out might not be a polished slasher classic, but I just love the effort here, and the killer mascot gimmick, it still rules. That bear, it looks cute and cuddly, right up until it gets its claws out. Now, my next movie, that features a mask you definitely won't forget. It's a snowbound slasher with a theatrical twist. Let's talk about Curtains. Curtains is the most atmospheric slasher on this list, and if the original director had his way, it would have been even more atmospheric, but he took off halfway through filming. So the producer took over and he took things in a more straightforward slasher direction. The plot centers around a super sleazy director and the 6 actresses he's invited to a remote mansion to all audition for the same role. This is going to be a big break for one of these thespians, so it's not all that surprising when someone in a wild-looking hag mask starts picking off the competition one by one. Since this movie was made by essentially 2 completely different crews, it definitely feels disjointed and a bit surreal, but it is grounded with some recognizable faces here, including John Vernon as the dickish director. Yeah, that's Dean Wormer from Animal House in the flesh. But for me, the highlight of this movie absolutely has to be the scene on the frozen lake with the killer stalking down Christy. And Christy doesn't even see the killer at first. Even when she turns around, she doesn't seem all that concerned. And then the sickle comes out. And this scene is wild. It's a chase that goes on for well over a minute because it's all shot in slow motion. And then things speed back up. It looks like Christy might have a chance to get away, but she spends too much time stumbling around in the woods, then takes respite at the wrong tree where she gets got with a sickle decapitation. And that decapitation also leads to a really fun head in the toilet scene later on, so there's definitely a number of reasons to add this one to your watch list. And we're going to keep the rad mask design theme going with this next one as well. It's one of my favorite masks in an 80s low-budget slasher. It's Edge of the Axe. Edge of the Axe is a slasher that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Maybe because it took almost 30 years for a decent quality version to come out, or maybe because it came out at the very tail end of the slasher boom. This one wasn't released till 1988. And this is also a rare Spanish-produced slasher, although it was mostly shot in Northern California. Now, we've got a great spooky season setting here in a wooded town where folks are being picked off by a silent killer in a white, expressionless mask. Now, Edge of the Axe, it's got a lot of what you'd expect from a small-town slasher film, like the local authorities who'd rather rule these deaths as suicides, and the suspiciously recent arrival with a computer obsession. This movie leans way more into the computer stuff than you'd expect from a slasher like this, though. It's a real time capsule. The best thing about Edge of the Axe, it's absolutely the killer's mask. It's stark white and completely emotionless with 2 eye holes that seem to have nothing behind them. There's gotta be some Michael Myers inspiration behind this thing, but it's unique enough you wouldn't call it a ripoff. And if there's a standout death in this movie, it's probably the very first kill just because it happened so suddenly. We got this lady taking her car through the wash, and all of a sudden, she's getting an axe right through the windshield, and it's going through her next. And the other kills, they follow a pretty similar pattern. We got the masked killer hiding somewhere, jump scaring the victim, multiple axe swings, streaks of blood, end scene. So if you're looking for a Spanish-American slasher to round out your watch list, check out Edge of the Axe. And since we've already got one foot in Europe, what the hell, let's go all the way. Did you know Amsterdam is full of canals? Well, it is, and this next film used them for one of the best speedboat chase sequences you're ever gonna see. It's a Dutch slasher called Amsterdamned. Released in 1988, Amsterdam is a Dutch police thriller crossed with a slasher, and it's the only foreign selection on this list that fully embraces its international roots, taking place on the streets and in the canals of Amsterdam. This killer also has one of the most functional disguises you'll find in a slasher film, a full-body scuba suit. But the killer isn't even the highlight of this movie for me, because that belongs to this film's lead, grizzled detective Eric Visser, looking like the Dutch version of Cobra with those aviators and leather jacket. This film follows him as he investigates a string of gruesome killings whose only connection seems to be the canals. Now, there aren't any real standout kills in this movie, but the speedboat chase through the canals, now that's epic stuff. It goes on for over 5 minutes, and these guys are flying all over the place. It feels like you get a full tour of the city following them around as they take these boats places they were never meant to go. The detective even gets smacked out of his boat at one point, hanging on for dear life. And, of course, with a chase scene like this, the only way you can end it is with a gigantic explosion. Amsterdamned is great because it takes the essence of the slasher formula and kicks it up a notch with the police action thriller elements and a cool as hell lead detective. Seriously, if that guy had a YouTube channel, I would definitely watch. Hell, I'd probably even hit like and subscribe. So, if you've been skipping out on Amsterdamned, make sure you change that. This movie is just too entertaining to miss out on. It also wasn't the only slasher hybrid to come out of the 80s. My next selection, Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, well, it's exactly what the title sounds like. Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge was released in 1989, and yes, this is a riff on Phantom of the Opera set in the suburban shopping mall of the 1980s. Yeah, this was shot at the Sherman Oaks Galleria. You'll definitely recognize this mall. It's in so many movies, including Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Shopping Mall, Commando. I could keep going, but that might end up being its own episode. Anyway, the setup here, it sees a burned and disfigured teen named Eric living and lurking in the mall that was built over the ashes of his family's former home. His old girlfriend thinks he died in the fire, but he's watching from the shadows, and anyone who gets too close will feel his wrath. I love how campy this movie is, and Eric, he's the sort of villain with no signature weapon, because this guy will use anything to get the job done. He crossbows, he shoves faces into fans, and at one point, he even unleashes a toilet snake on a guy. And you know he's got a flamethrower waiting for the final confrontation too. I mean, this guy's just creative. This movie also has some of the most surprising faces you'll see in a slasher film. We got a pre-Weasel Pauly Shore playing it mostly straight here, so no wheezing the juice.
Wheeze a little juice. No, wheezing the juice.
Morgan Fairchild plays the mall-loving mayor, and the best part is the evil mall owner. It's played by Jonathan Goldsmith. He's also known as the most interesting man in the world, at least according to Dos Equis. Phantom of the Mall is probably the least scary movie on this list, but the ridiculous take on the Phantom of the Opera story, it's a lot of fun. And this is a can't-miss movie for anyone who appreciates 80s mall culture. And I almost forgot to mention, Eric even uses a box crusher to take out a guy at one point, but the effects look kind of cheesy. Now my next movie also has a box crusher kill, but it goes way harder. Now I'm finishing this list up with two of my goriest selections. I'm starting with 1989's Intruder. Directed by Evil Dead 2 co-writer Scott Spiegel, Intruder was primed to be one of the goriest movies of the 1980s. Or at least that was before the censors absolutely butchered the hell out of it. Almost 5 minutes of this movie were taken out, including pretty much all the practical effect kills. Now, I've never seen that censored version. I wouldn't want to either, especially knowing what the uncut version has to offer. And the setup here is about as simple as it gets. We got a night crew winding down a grocery store before it shuts down for good, and now they're being hunted down by a mysterious killer. Evil Dead star Bruce Campbell also cameos as a police officer, but the kills, they're the real star of this movie. Now, if you like gnarly practical effects, you've got to check out Intruder. This was the first movie from the legendary K&B Effects team. They went on to be a dominant force in the 90s and the 2000s. If you've seen The Walking Dead, The Faculty, or a movie I just talked about on my Best Twist video, From Dusk Till Dawn, you're familiar with their work. It's always top-notch, and they set a standard for themselves on this first film with some effects that might make you queasy. And at the top of that list is the bandsaw kill. I'm not surprised this one got cut back in '89 because it's nasty, and once that blade hits flesh, I can't help but wince. There's something about the teeth in that model head that just make this thing look too realistic. It's absolutely one of the rawest looking kills you're gonna find in an 80s slasher. This movie deserves a wider audience, and if you're a fan of that old school gore, it's essential viewing. But it's time for me to move on to the last selection on this list. No surprise that the wildest movie here is a co-production between Spain, Italy, and the United States. Get ready for Pieces. You don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre. That's the tagline on the Pieces poster, and it pretty well sums up what this movie's all about. Released in 1982, this international co-production is sleazy and mean-spirited and There's nothing quite like it. It opens with a scene of a young boy axing his own mother to death after she catches him putting together a naked lady puzzle that I guess were a thing at the time. Anyway, he gets away with it by blaming it on a large stranger. Then the meat of this movie takes place 40 years later on what is supposed to be a New England college campus, but it's mostly shot in Spain. Now, outside of its insane kills, if there's one thing that Pieces is known for, it's Linda Day George's line delivery after discovering a fresh corpse in the locker room. She practically blows the mic out with this one. Bastard! Bastard! Also in Espanol. Bestia! Bestia! Pieces is one of those movies that has lots of random characters, strange dialogue, and a ton of naked flesh to go along with those kills. Meaning, there's just a lot of this movie I can't show here. But one standout kill where the victim is actually clothed is the waterbed kill. It's really stylishly shot with the slow-mo and the blood mixing with the water, turning it red as she's thrashing around. And the whole thing is capped off with a brutal stab to the back of the head. Pieces is an early 80s slasher that fully embraces all of the sleaziness and grime that the genre could offer. And also all the weird twists. I'm not talking about the identity of the killer either. I'm talking about the final shot of this movie, which makes absolutely no sense, but I also don't think this one could have ended any other way. So there you have it. 8 deep cut slashers from the 1980s that you should be watching. And really, these 8 films are just scratching the surface of what the 80s have to offer, so I'm asking you, what's your favorite 80s deep cut slasher? Drop them in the comments, and we'll keep building out this list of crazy slashers from the decade that defined the genre. And if you had a good time with this list, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons and join the cult. We're just in month 1, I've got so much planned, and for now, go ahead and catch up on my favorite Halloween set horror, not from the 80s, right here. And that's it for today. I'm CT Reese. Thanks for hanging out with me, and keep watching weird movies. I know I will.